you can you can you can shoot your questions. That's how we start. Really, it's all a discussion. So go ahead, Lenny. Ask. Oh, you are got muted. We cannot hear you.
How about
Lenny,
now?
There you
yes,
go.
now we can hear
Okay.
you.
I got 3 questions I wrote down during the week that came up while I was working on the spooky stuff. Can I share myself and my husband's fingernails into the remote and run the M&L program for us together with the Gen X plus 2 XMs? Or do you recommend I get a whole new setup for my husband with the Gen X and 2 XMs?
So the you can, if you guys are running the same programs, as long as your nails are separated by the stickers, and you want to run the same programs,
I can hear it.
you can run the same programs on the same people, on the same generators and the same remotes.
Okay, and for the running the M&L program, which is the
Morgellons and Lyme program.
Morgellons and Lyme, yes. Does it ever happen during the process of it that you have to run something on the side or something, or and you still run us together, or it's just I can run us? I know it takes a whole year.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
The Morgellons and Lyme program, it's kind of up to you as to how both of you are responding. A lot of times you know how you're responding. If somebody is having more challenges than another person, then you may want to have them in separate remotes so that you can run separate support programs like the Herxheimer programs or the detox programs. They do have online on the, there's a specific Facebook page that is specific for all questions for Morgellons and Lyme. It's an actual group page that is set up for specifically for Morgellons and Lyme disease and dealing with that. So you can get more help that way. And also when you click on the Morgellons and Lyme programs within the Spooky2 system, it should give you, and that right-hand side, it should give you all kinds of information on how you should be running the particular programs. There's also the Spooky2 forum that you can sign up for, and they have a specific page set up for Morgellons and Lyme too, that you can get a lot of assistance from people who have run through those programs.
There's a step-by-step in the Facebook page on, I don't think it's it probably is in there too. Susie Smith, or one of those brilliant people on that page, comprised a whole format to follow step by step by step by step, easy. I printed it out.
Oh, that's great.
And it looked like I could follow it from being a newbie. I'm not really a newbie, but I'm still like kind of a newbie. And I don't think anybody, until I get results, I'm a newbie.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So if you're following those protocols, as far as I know, there isn't any contraindications to running 2 people on the same Morgellons and Lyme protocol.
Okay.
The efficacy, how well it works on each person, sometimes that may be dependent. It may take a little longer having 2 people in there. That is just my personal experience from dealing with things like dealing with pathogens like the flu virus and COVID, that sometimes it seemed to be not as fast, I should say, running more than 1 person on the same remote for the COVID program. But that I'm not 100% sure if that's just something I observed in my, in my thing in my family when we were working on in some friends, or if that's an actual, because Morgellons is a long program anyway. So I'm not sure if that has that impact, but that's something to keep in mind. if you're not getting the results that you're expecting to get after a month or two of being on the program, on the, the Morgellons program.
Well, maybe
Okay,
we
good
can
to
ask
know.
the rest. We can ask the rest of the audience whether anybody has had experience on this side. If you put multiple people's DNA, have they seen any difference in the results? If anybody has done it in the past? Well, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, yeah, I have treated, I've treated several people in the same remote on some programs, and it seems to work really, really well. And then sometimes I've had to separate them out. And so I think it just kind of depends on what results you're getting and what programs you're running.
So if you have, so there's 2 generators in Gen X, right?
Yes,
And you can put 2 remotes in it.
yes,
So can you run 2 different programs,
yes,
which goes, and you can channelize it to different remotes, right? Each of the programs.
yes.
Okay. Yes. So Lenny, go ahead. I mean, you had some other question or comments.
Do we want to let somebody else have a chance?
Well,
I'll
if
ask
somebody
the
will
next
raise their hand, right? You just go ahead right now.
Okay. I take ifaxin for IBS, and I noticed in the Spooky program that they have ifaxin, but they also have other drugs for other things vibrationally in the program. I've never used it yet. I didn't know how to use it. Like, I'm always running a detox in the background, so that's always going on in my world. But if I ever can use the drug version in the Spooky for other things, and how effective is it? That's what I wanted to know.
I've heard, I haven't done a lot with the molecular weight that they have for the medications that are on there. From what I have read is that they're not as effective as the medication itself, so they don't recommend that you go off of your medications. It may potentially be something that you can reduce your amount, but I don't know if it means that you have to run that molecular weight 24/7 to get the same benefit. So unfortunately, I don't know enough about that to be confident in doing that, except for I have used some of them in combined in other programs. Like if I were to put together a program for IBS specifically for healing the gut, I might put that in the program itself to add to the program's benefit that you might receive, getting that same kind of molecular weight as the medication itself, added onto a program that has gut healing presets in it.
I take this medicine 10 days out of the month. And I was thinking after I took it, I stopped, I would put that on while I wasn't taking it. Just a thought.
Yeah, actually, and you can experiment with that. The nice thing about the frequencies is that it doesn't really leave any residual things behind like medications do. So you can try that, and then always pay attention to how you feel. If you're feeling cruddy or whatever, or it's just not feeling right, listen to that gut instinct and say, okay, it's not doing what I want it to do. Or it may be, I'm not really feeling anything. I think it's doing okay, so I'm going to let it run and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, sometimes you have to decide that I want to make this process work, right? And then you'll think of ways of tweaking it differently, right? Half a day's frequency, half a day's medication, and I want to reduce it, or two days frequencies, whatever. You'll try to tweak different ways. Once you decide, if you have the right intention, the process will ultimately work, because we know this technology is a kosher technology and it does work. All you have to do is make it work in your body, in your situation.
Yeah, there's a lot of tweaking going on with this, a lot of individuality, and it's nice to be able to have other people to share it with,
Sure.
like real
Yeah,
people, not just somebody I'm reading in, in one of the programs.
Yeah.
absolutely. And once you start seeing some movement, please share with us, right, so everybody else can learn it. You tried these and these, and ultimately this is what worked.
So I'm learning as well. I have my my father-in-law who went through open heart surgery. And so, and then he's been having, some gut pain and stuff and some edema. And we keep trying to figure out, keep trying to make programs for, gut pain and edema and that type of stuff. And finally I was like, okay, we're just not hitting on the right frequency that he really needs. So I had him put the contacts on either side of the place that was causing him pain. And then I ran to narrow down the biofeedback field. So it wasn't a whole body thing. It was just generally around the area where the pain was. And then I ran a biofeedback scan and got exactly 10 hits for frequencies on that, and created a program that I ran on contact with him, and then I would run it on remote. And right after I ran the 30-minute contact, the pain disappeared. And then I ran the remote for 24 hours, and then the pain gradually came back a little bit. So I ran the contact again and the pain disappeared. So I think it's going to be just, those are the right frequencies. We're getting the response that we want. And so he's, so I know that contact can have a stronger, faster effect over remote. Remote does work, and it will work just as well, but a lot of times it will take longer. So I'm running the remote on the times when he's not in contact for that. And I'm hoping that given a couple weeks or whatever, we'll have resolved whatever issue it is. I don't know what issue it is, but hopefully it will have resolved itself.
So really, so to make it more effective, you should put the contact, and I assume these are the TENS pads, right?
The TENS pads, yes. And this one I was using the TENS pads, yeah.
Yeah, just put right on the spot where the pain is, right? That's the
Yeah.
most effective way to do it.
That's what I am finding out with different trainings and different things that I'm reading, is that if you really want to narrow in on specific areas that you're having issues with, you want to do a biofeedback that is close to that area. It could be as close as 10 millimeters apart. The TENS pads can be that close to each other and still give you a biofeedback scan. And so obviously I don't believe you can still do things above the shoulders for frequencies. I'll have to check it out and see if that is the case with biofeedback. Like, can you run biofeedback on your neck? Well, you're still running frequencies, and they recommend that you don't do it above the shoulder. So maybe not. So you would want to get as close to that as possible without overlapping that, or crossing the current across your heart type of thing, or running it on your thyroid. Those are the big areas that they tell you to kind of stay away from. But other than that, yeah, if you can get as close to the pain as possible, that it will narrow in what frequencies are needed in that area, I think is how it works.
Right, so let's assume somebody has pain in one of the knees.
Mm-hmm.
So where should that person put those contacts?
My thought is, and recommendation, like I did with a couple of people, is that you put it just on either side of where the pain is, so that the currents are crossing that area of pain, so that
Right.
it will, so it'll figure out the frequencies that work for that area of pain.
Right. So this is do the scan, and when you want to remedy it, use the same spots with the.
Yeah, that's what I did. Again, I'm, like I said, I'm still learning, but that seems to be,
That works.
the videos that I've been watching from like John White and some of the others who are who do the videos were saying, yeah, you could just turn right around and run the program on wherever the TENS pads are connected for the biofeedback. You can turn right around and reattach the connector to the boost and start running a contact program right then.
Yeah. And for people who have Gen XM, right, the biofeedback will take much longer.
It does take much longer. You need to use the pulse either on your ear or on your finger. It needs to be connected to your computer. There's a USB cable, short USB cable that connects the boost to your computer. And you also have to have the TENS pads connected to your right hand and the inside of your left ankle, or outside, either one on your left ankle, so that it is running those currents across your body as well as measuring your heartbeat response, either through the finger connected to the finger or the ear clip to so unfortunately, any type of movement, so that's why you have to lie flat when you're doing it on the XM biofeedback. On that one, you want to lie flat. It can take about an hour, or sometimes more, depending on how fast your heart rate is. If you have a really slow heart rate, then it may take quite a bit longer to complete the full biofeedback scan for that one. And again, any movement that you have or coughing or any of that type of stuff will disrupt or delay the scan. So then it's pushed a little bit further. So it is remarkably effective when you get a good scan. Sometimes though, it can be problematic in getting a good scan.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I understand.
It's worth a try. If you have the time, it's definitely worth a try to see what you can get from a biofeedback scan on that. But most people, just because of the ease of use and the fact that the Gen X biofeedback is not dependent on heart rate, it's frequency. It's based on frequencies and what frequency response it gets back, what kind of response it gets from the body. You can be sitting up, you can be talking, you can, that type of thing. And you'll be okay. They recommend that you do stay still as much as possible, but it only runs anywhere from, 7 to 15 minutes.
Oh, it's a big difference.
It is a big difference. Yes, big difference.
Yeah. Okay, very good. So let's ask anybody else has any questions, any comments, anything they want to share.
Now, is anyone having, I always go back to the basics. If anyone's having any, there is no wrong question. You may sit there and say, oh, you have answered this question a million times, or I'm just a beginner and I don't understand where to start, or any of that type of stuff. There are no wrong questions. If you are struggling to even get started, we can help you get started. So.
Louise, this isn't a question, but I just wanted to say the machine is a modified BCX. Does that mean anything to you?
BCX, I've heard of it before, but I don't have any experience with it.
Okay.
Is it, Kathy, is it very large in size, very small in size?
It's hooked up to a laptop. Sorry, hold on a second.
But does it look very big, or can you turn your camera?
Hooked up to a laptop, and it has some tubes. Well, of course, it has some tubes, glass tubes, 2 of them, and then a small machine also with a knob on it. That's why I thought it was the Rife, but it's not.
Ah, okay. Oh, of course, yeah, it's in your home, right? You're not at your home right now.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But I wanted to mention that, and I'll try to get all the information I can on it.
Yeah, that's one where you're going to, if it's got tubes in it, it may be similar to the plasma, to the Spooky2 plasma more than the Rife, but unfortunately I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, I think later on the week.
No, sorry, go ahead.
So you're going to show it to me later on this week. So
Yeah.
we'll take a look and then figure out, and then we'll
Okay.
share in this next week in this meeting.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question here. She has 3 generators. One is running, but the other 2 have finished. Can I turn off the 2 I'm not using while the 3rd is still running? Oh, she said that her sound and video is not working on her laptop, right? So, okay, so if you have 3 generators, and I'm assuming when you mean that you have the XM generators. Actually, it doesn't matter if you have 3 generators, whether it's an XM generator or a generator X, and the other 2 are finished. If you want to, yes, you can turn off the other 2 while you're not running them. The software will tell you that it can't see those generators anymore when you turn them off. So when you turn them back on to use them or run them, you may run into an issue where the software won't see them. And then you will have to go up to the tabs at the top. You have, I can share it on the other screen. Let me do that really quick.
Utilities.
Utils, you go to utils and you find rescan generators in there, and then it'll find the generators for you. If you want to, I can show you just really quick where those are at, if that would be helpful. If you want to answer in the chat.
I think Sarah says she probably understood.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. Yes. All right. So she's good. So any of those, that's the nice thing about the software that they have now. You can pause the generators. You can do a global pause, which will pause every generator that you have. You can flat out turn off the software after you do a global pause. You could turn off the software, even turn off your computer, turn it all back on, bring up the software again, and then you can do a resume, and it will pick up exactly where it left off before you shut everything down. So it will save where you are at in all of your programs and all of your generators. So if at any point you go, oh geez, I have to, shut down my computer for some reason, or I need to shut down the software, or I want to install a database in there and you want to pause everything, it will save it for you, and you could just do a resume and it will pick up where it left off.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So anybody else? Any questions, any comments? I think I see a new name, Vati Istanto. So Vati, were you here last week?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was here last week. So I'm still new and I'm trying something different now. I'm doing like a flea sweep. So I've just put that sample in the remote and I'm just running that to see how that goes for my pets.
Oh, okay. So are you doing a spectrum sweep?
Yeah, spectrum.
Yes, okay. So for those who aren't familiar with what Wadi is doing, is that if you have pests in your home, one of the things that you can try is you can do what is known as a spectrum sweep. And I can't remember exactly where that is at. I think it's under DNA.
I think it was under miscellaneous on the pre ones.
Okay, it's under miscellaneous. Okay. So what you can do is you can find a sample of mold in your home, right? You say you have some pink mold in your bathroom, or you have some mold on a windowsill, and you can take a swab of that mold and put it onto one of those stickers, sandwich that sticker, put it in the remote, and run a spectrum sweep over that for quite a while. You want to do that for basically, you can do that until the mold or the insects disappear. So like what Wadi is doing is she has issues with fleas with her pets. So she has collected a flea and has put it into the sticker and put it into her remote. And then you can run the spectrum sweep, and that frequency will resonate with that particular insect and hopefully either kill them off or drive them away. The one thing that they do recommend with a spectrum sweep is that you refresh your sample every couple of days. So until the mold has disappeared or the insects have disappeared from your home, and then you just keep running it 24/7. I heard for some people it was like 2 to 3 months for them to get rid of the mold, but it's one way to eradicate those kind of pathogens in your home without any, insecticides and, sprays for the mold and that type of stuff.
Can you actually put a mold sample plus a flea sample in the one remote if you're doing a spectrum sweep?
It's, I wouldn't recommend that just because I think you will get better results with just doing one at a time. You could potentially do, if you had the generator X and had the two, I would put the mold in one remote and then the fleas in the other.
Yeah.
And then do it that way. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Because, and one of the nice things about using frequencies to destroy something like, eradicate something like mold is that it is a slower process. It keeps it from spreading, and then it slowly but surely breaks it down until it disappears. So you don't get that massive load of mycotoxins. I don't know if anyone is familiar with what happens when you destroy mold quickly in your home, is that it releases, when it dies, it releases something known as a mycotoxin into the air, which if you think mold is bad for you, that kind of die off is actually worse for you. You breathe that in. And so when it does that, the release of mycotoxins is very, very low. And so eradicating mold in your home using frequencies is a lot safer for everyone in the home. It's slower, but it's a lot safer.
So if there was extensive mold between the walls, you can still use it and it may take a bit longer?
It would take longer. I don't know, if you have really extensive mold, it could take like years to get rid of it, because you also have to have a visible sample that you can regularly swab and put in there. So it is a process. it is quite involved. I've done some with just, like I said, like pink mold that I found in the bathroom. And it took a month and a half before it really looked like it had broken it down to the point where it was, it was under control as an experiment. So I would imagine that if you would have to do that for every single, we have several different types of molds in our homes. And so it would be a process to get it all done, but it does work.
Yeah, I have noticed that I eat plenty of fruits. So I have fruit flies in the house and they keep flying around. So if I can grab one of those, I can probably put it in the remote, right? And then
Right. Yeah. And then run the spectrum sweep on there, and every couple of days, see if you could snag another one and put it in there. And then eventually it should reduce the number or eliminate them.
well, that's a good thought. I'll try it out. Yeah. Okay, good. So anybody else? Any questions, comments?
I will say with the spectrum sweep, as of yet, I have so many other things that I'm treating people for that a lot of times I don't have a free remote to do because I'm dealing with aphids in my greenhouse right now, and I really want to do a spectrum sweep for that, but I haven't been able to do that. So
Well, so that's a good thought because, see, I go and volunteer in an organic farm. And of course, they don't use any fertilizer or any other thing, any spray. It's an amazing farm, but they do get bugs which are harmful. So I could just bring a couple home, right? And then run the remote on them. The
Yeah,
spectrum
I
sweep.
don't, I don't know how that works because you would think that if you're running a spectrum sweep near you, that because of the because you're working with quantum entanglement, that it would potentially cause issues with, other bugs elsewhere. But in this case with the spectrum sweep, it seems like it's more localized. It's more centralized to a certain area. So
Close proximity, right? Close
closer,
proximity.
yeah, close proximity. Whereas further out, it doesn't seem to have the effect that it does closer in. And I don't know if that's because of the way that they have the frequencies that they have in there and the way that the harmonics and offsets are set for that spectrum sweep. Because you could imagine that potentially you could, really disrupt some kind of natural cycle if you are, running spectrum sweeps for ants in your home and it just kind of wipes out all the ant population for the entire city after a while. You're like, that would be bad. So I think it's set for, to be only powerful enough to work within a certain area.
Yeah, that makes sense because that pathogen that I'm trying to get rid of in the farm, so between my house and the farm, there's like 5 miles. You
Right.
could have millions of them right in between. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So anybody else? Any other questions, comments? Helen, I see Helen is here. Helen, did you ever acquire a machine or you could never get one machine?
No, I haven't inquired.
Does anybody in your neighborhood have one? Maybe they have, maybe somebody else
Oh,
has.
no one here has it.
Oh, no one has it.
Yeah, like it's not a known machine.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
it's.
But I wanted to ask,
Mhm.
Can you do distant healing, sort of?
What
Yes.
do you mean?
Like maybe I'm here and someone lives down the road. Can it be done?
Yes, absolutely. I know several people and I've done it before as well, where someone has sent me their nail samples and I have put that in there and I've done distance treatment. The difference between, say, something like a spectrum sweep as opposed to the regular programs in there is that the programs and the presets, the frequencies, resonate with that DNA. And so it finds you wherever you're at because of quantum physics, because of quantum entanglement. And it's because it's energy based, and it will find that same energy and resonate with that to do the frequency treatment, to kill pathogens or to promote healing. So it does do that. And I've had success in doing that with people who have been, in another country as opposed to, or across the country.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that question.
Yeah. And so it doesn't
it-
seem to matter. Distance does not seem to matter at all in the effect. I know of another person who regularly runs treatments for people all over the world. When COVID was even more virulent than it is now with the Delta variant, was treating people all over the world with fabulous results. So yeah, It does not matter how far away you are.
Oh,
Sometimes they
that's
will,
great.
yeah, so some of the frequencies that you will run, it will say on the side, it will sit there and say you want to have the remote within your within a few feet of you or whatever for maximum results type of thing, within your aura, so to speak, so that it has the best potential for results, faster results, I should say, with the remote. But you don't have to be right next to it. You don't have to even be in the same city to get the benefit.
Well,
Very interesting.
so that's a good question. So really, I mean, I would say it's like a magic wand. I mean, you can just do anybody, anywhere, you can work on that, but you do need to do some learning on it. But maybe Louise is right time to discuss what is this quantum entanglement? Do you know how does it work? I've heard the word, but I could never grasp the mechanism.
Quantum physics encompasses a huge variety of things. It's a part of everything from our cell phones to other technology. And I am not a physicist, so I don't know exactly. I saved it somewhere.
Well, quantum physics
It's a
I know very,
diagram
very
for,
well. Quantum physics I know very well.
okay.
But entanglement is where
Okay.
I get entangled, right? I don't know.
So, from what I understand, it's kind of based on the same thing as as the words say, quantum entanglement. It will find, I'm not sure I should be guessing here on that type of thing. I kind of have an idea of what it is in my head, but I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. I just know that it is based on quantum physics and being able to connect energy patterns wherever they are, essentially in the universe, not just on this planet, but it's being able that everything is connected energetically in some manner. And so being able to find its energetic twin wherever they are at. So that is how the spooky works, is that it uses that, the quantum field, and like meets like, it finds its pair. It finds where it is. That's where sometimes you will get a crossover with close relatives. Say you are treating someone, and, you're treating someone's child or whatever, and they may feel some of the residual effects. Like they've had instances where parents have been running the terrain program, and their kids have started getting fussy or upset or showing signs of the detox process, right? So there is that kind of overlap with that. It's not just DNA, but you'll find that with people who have lived together for a long time. So their quantum fields have become entangled. And so they're, and they're not quite as separate. So they can actually feel some of the same effects. It's the same thing that you get where like, you'll have a husband who may end up having morning sickness when the wife is pregnant. It's the same kind of philosophy. It's not necessarily just psychological. There is that quantum entanglement. They are so, energetically, connected to each other. And so you'll have that overlap. So that's why sometimes parents with very young kids who run the terrain program on themselves need to be aware that they could potentially pay attention to their little kids. If they start getting fussy or, something along those lines, it may take longer for you to do the train program because you may have to pause it and wait until they're, it's calmed down or whatever, and then continue to do that, or run a lower frequency terrain program until, because their kids may be needing the terrain program, but if they're under 5 years old, they recommend, or 7, 5 or 7, I can't remember, I think it's 7. They don't recommend that you run any frequencies on them because they just can't tell you how they feel. They can't tell you if it hurts. They can't tell you if they're upset or, or something's bothering them. So, so you just have to pay attention to that. So there is that crossover in energies that you can impact another person. I know of one instance where I was treating a woman and her family for COVID, and then her mom started feeling strange while the treatment was happening, and then coming down with some of the same type of detox symptoms or whatever. And then when I stopped the running those frequencies on them, within half an hour, it all cleared up for her. So you can run into that where you end up having kind of sometimes a transfer of symptoms, or a transfer of the detox symptoms that are on there. Just know that they are not permanent. Like, you cannot give someone, if you're doing Lyme disease treatment on you, and you're having a reaction, and then someone you're very, very close to starts having a reaction as well. No, they're not going to get Lyme disease from you. They're not going to get any of that type of stuff. It just means that you may have to take a break from running the frequencies for a while.
Right. So essentially the word quantum means discrete. So an electron, or these minute particles, can only exist in discrete levels. There's nothing in between, and nobody understands how they go from one point to another. So that is a quantum. And because they can be either particle or a wave, they can exist. So if you have a wall and the particle is here, there's a finite probability that it will appear on this other side somehow, and nobody knows when. It will somehow appear here. Yeah, it's
Yes.
like a miracle kind of stuff happens in that quantum domain. So how does it get translated? Maybe something similar happens and it translates to a person at a remote distance, or a relative. Maybe it's something there. That's why they call it quantum. Or maybe it's just a fancy word to use, quantum.
Well, it is. It is. A lot of times I will watch or read the articles that try to explain what Spooky does, and some of it is really kind of just flies right past me. I was like, I have no frame of reference onto how that works. It's like, but I do know that it does. It
works.
finds you. It works. Yeah,
Yeah.
It finds you. And that's,
That's the important part, right? That it works.
yeah, that's the important part, because otherwise, if I sit there and try to wrap my head around it, it just
Yeah, it
gets
boggles
confusing.
my mind how Mr. Royal Rife figured this out. That this will work.
Part of it was from basic looking at microscopic organisms and the things that would break down cell walls within microscopic organisms. When I was in a science class in college, we connected frequencies to small, single-celled organism, amoeba type organisms or whatever. And then when you connected the plate to certain frequencies and certain electrical, frequencies, as signals, as well as auditory signals and that type of thing. Just like vibrating a glass, once you vibrate, you match its, frequency, and then you amplify that, you can break glass. The same thing happens to single-celled organisms with sound or electrical impulses. So my just reading the things that I think it started that way, where he's like, wow, if certain frequencies can break apart single-celled pathogens in a slide, can they do that inside of a body? And can you do that without breaking apart the cells of the body that's around it? And then he found out that he could. And then it was more about trying to find which frequencies will destroy pathogens and which ones will heal tissue. He's like, if the opposite is true, is if you can break down, certain pathogen walls, you can also reinforce cell walls and heal cells with certain frequencies. So it was a painstaking process of finding which ones work, and that is why that's one of the reasons why when they talk about when you do the laser with cancer cells, there's something about the frequencies of a cold laser treatment that actually reinforce and reproduce cancer cells for skin cancer and that type of stuff. So they're like, don't use that particular, the cold laser frequencies on cancer because it just reinforces and helps it reproduce, and you don't want to do that. But if you had, say, torn ligaments or something along those lines, well, you do want those cells to reproduce and reinforce. So in that case, it's a healing frequency. So.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So let's ask the audience again, right? Anybody else has anything to share? Any questions, comments?
Or anything that you would like to see, like you don't know where to find something in the software. I can share my screen with the software and go through and show you where certain things are if you're confused as to where to find biofeedback or where to use things or how to hook things up.
I wanted to just add something on the entanglement where I was treating my sister, my brother, and it was 2 or 3 different households, and myself is 3 different households, but 2 of them had diarrhea. And I thought, I wonder if it's from my treatment. So I had a look at the program, and the program that was on, it was on a detox on parasites. So I don't know whether it was a coincidence, but it just felt odd where they're both saying, oh, I've just had some sudden diarrhea for some unknown reason. So yeah, I thought I'd add that in.
So yeah, and sometimes you will get that effect. I've had that effect occasionally with my husband and my son, where I'm running running frequencies and they have had diarrhea or whatever, and that is one of the detox reactions that you can get if you're running a detox program, is that kind of, yeah. It's just one way of knowing it's working. At the same time, it's a little strong. So, you have to pause and let the gut calm down and then go back to doing that. So let's see here. Would a PC laptop be okay that has Linux Mint? Everything that is the Spooky2 software runs on Windows. But you can do, if you are doing Linux, you can use certain applications that mimic Windows. So, and my husband's a software engineer, and I know there's a name for this thing that you can use, but you basically put a window in a window. So you have your Linux operating system, and then you have a Windows, you spoof Windows within Linux. And I know there's an app that you can do that. so that you can have, say, you could even have, I don't know if you could do it on a Mac, but I know you can do it on Linux, where you can spoof Windows within Linux, and then you can run the Spooky2 software within that spoofed Windows inside of the Linux operating system. So I can find out more about that, Renan, if you're interested.
Yeah, you can do that in Apple as well. You can create the environment, the Windows environment within the Apple software or Linux software. Now, the only question is, I don't know whether it will work or not, because there's some applications which will actually not work on that virtual, it's called the virtual environment.
Oh, thank you. Virtual. That's what I was looking for. Was that word? Yeah.
Yes, it's a virtual environments, and some applications do. And there are different versions of virtual environments as well. So for example, if you wanted to run Excel, so certain combinations may not be supported in virtual environments. So really, you just have to create that virtual environment. I think you can easily download a virtual environment in Linux and then just try it out and see whether it works.
Yeah, and see, as far as I know, my husband says that the Spooky2 software is fairly straightforward. It's fairly simple, so it may you may not have any issues, and we're actually intending on doing that to get a couple more laptops that may that can run Spooky, and using that Linux setup, so that we don't have so many updates that mess with the Spooky2 software. So but yeah, I would suggest working that out and testing it and seeing if it works. The other thing asked is if using mold frequency, do we need to set Herxheimer too? Typically, if you're doing any type of environmental spectrum sweep like mold that does emit a toxin when it dies, you do want to continue to run detox maintenance or something along those lines while you're running the mold frequencies, just to eliminate any effect that it may have on your body. So that would be my recommendation. Second recommendation would be start running the mold frequency. If you start feeling yucky, then pause it and make sure that you do run a detox or Herxheimer program.
Yeah, I've noticed whenever I run, so I've been running a terrain program, and yesterday I started having headache, which I normally don't. So I realized that must be that program. So I paused it, and by the evening, then I got good relief after that.
Yeah, I tend to, once headaches are a big one. If you start getting headaches, then you may be having frequency fatigue. I seem to notice headaches more with, I associate them more with needing to take a break from the program that I'm running, whichever one it is, that I need to take a break, as opposed to detox symptoms that you need to get through. Things like upset stomach or fatigue when you're tired, kind of that kind of brain fog, you're not thinking quite as clearly.
Nausea, maybe nausea.
A little bit of nausea or whatever. Those things, if they're tolerable, I tend to think of those more as things are trying to detox out of my body, and I'll keep the programs running. And usually what happens is that after, it was on a certain frequency that was really, taking care of something in my body. And then once it shifts to the next frequency, then within 20 minutes to a half an hour, that stuff calms down. So if you can work your way through it, that's fine. Headaches, I find, seem to be more along the lines of my body telling me you need to take a break from the frequencies for anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. But I suspect that is also very individual. So again, if you're getting headaches and upset stomach and that type of stuff, and you're really thinking that you need a break, then absolutely take a break for a little while and then see how you feel. And then some people, it is very apparent, they'll stop it and then they'll, 24 hours or 72 hours later, they'll start it back up again. And boy, that thing just happens right immediately. And then they know that it really is a detox response as opposed to frequency fatigue or some kind of, fatigue that way. And you can decide then whether you want to continue or if you want to lower, run it for just a little while, then pause, run it a little while and pause. So yeah, it's very individual, but just pay attention to how you're feeling. Sometimes being just in a crabby mood is a response of, detox stuff or frequency fatigue. So don't just assume that you're having a bad day or things are, or you're just being a jerk. It could literally be something outside of you, a frequency that is just really irritating your system. And that's a symptom that comes out.
Yeah, and we've seen that in other alternative treatments. Healing reaction is sort of built into many of these alternative treatments. So expect to see healing reactions in between whenever we do these things.
And that being said, also don't be discouraged if you don't have a healing reaction. You're like, I'm feeling great. I'm feeling fine. Some people don't have a reaction. Doesn't mean that it's not working. It means that you have other measurements that you can take. Like, it may be that you're actually feeling incrementally better. Some people will take the entire terrain and they were like, I didn't feel anything. I didn't have any Herxheimer reactions or whatever. But boy, I'll tell you, within 24 hours after I stopped that terrain program, wow, I had more energy, or I was sleeping better, especially sleeping better. That shows up a lot. I started sleeping better, it's like my digestion seemed to be better. Look at the things that also are, the good things as well that will show up after you finish a frequency, because sometimes they won't even show up for a day or two after you've done something. Then all of a sudden you notice, oh, hey, this is better.
Yeah, so there can be a delay in the response because the body is not completely purged of the toxins that it had removed from different parts of the body, and they're probably still in the body and in the process of coming out. Once they come out, then of course you're much better situation.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. So anybody else, any other comments? Well, I guess we had good discussion today. I think we almost done our hour, and certainly I learned several new tips today, which will come in very handy. I'm sure the other people in the audience probably have picked up a few things as well. So I think that's the way for us to go. Just keep picking up a few more tips and tricks, and we'll be much more effective in using these tools. All right, so we'll keep meeting every Tuesday at the same time, right? Till people say no more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, see you
Okay.
guys next week.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.